Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Quarantine Connect 2020. I'm so glad today to have invited Dr. Corrie. He's been an inspiration for me since past 2 years. I've been chasing him like anything, trying to understand how many different things I can get from him and how he can help me improve myself as a CEO. But today, finally, we got the time. Thanks to COVID-19. I know you were saying I got it.
Thanks to COVID-19 for this incredible opportunity. Thank you so much for inviting me, Nousheen. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure too for having you with me today. Dr. Corrie is the CEO of Paragon Consulting.
Correct.
He's an author. I will talk about the book later. He's a wonderful author, an amazing business coach, and a very well-known public speaker. People have been learning from him like anything. And he's the greatest inspiration I have in the world of business.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet of you to say.
He has a wonderful book called Spartan CEO coming up very soon. And this is what we were talking about before we logged in to the recording. So before talking about anything else related to business, we want to know what inspired you to think of writing Spartan CEO?
Oh, actually, it started a number of years ago. I've been doing research for the book for about 10 years, in which time I've done a lot of executive coaching. And through my executive coaching, I started to recognize the behaviors and attitudes that set high-performing senior managers and executives apart from low-performing senior managers and executives, because I deal with all kinds. And then my own transformation started about 7 years ago. And actually what happened was I was extremely mentally fit, right? I already had 2 masters and a doctorate degree at that time, and I was working on my second doctorate degree. But I was extremely physically unfit, and it didn't match up with me. You know, I was teaching all of my executive coaching clients a holistic view of business, and business is personal and humans not resources, and that's those kinds of concepts. But I couldn't get my own life in order. I couldn't get all of my holistic life in order. So I finally hit the gym. I went 21 days, no days off. I changed the way that I view myself physically, and that also impacted the way that I perform mentally and the way that I perform organizationally. And then I got to thinking about that kind of holistic psychosocial model of business, which is the combination of physical, mental, and organizational health. And so that's really where the journey towards Spartan CEO started. But I've been doing the research hardcore for the book for more than 2 years. And it's science and story based. It is a combination of great stories and great science. I'm a researcher by hobby. Don't be impressed with all of my degrees. I don't watch football. I don't collect classic cars. This is what I do. I read and write journal articles. But yeah, so that's where the journey started. Was I just wanted to find out from my experience and from the research what actually sets apart high-performing executives and senior managers from lower-performing executives and senior managers. And so I've separated those tips and tricks into 6 pillars, which I've been using in my executive coaching for the last 3 or 4 years. But now I'm making it available to the public for the first time.
Right. I want to know at least about 1 pillar right now.
Sure.
So what is one major trait that all the successful CEOs, one major habit, let's say, one major strategy that all the great CEOs are following?
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. I think physical fitness is one of the long-standing common denominators between higher and lower performing CEOs. And this isn't just myself saying this. This is actually backed up by decades of research. So in my book, I go through a couple of different research articles. One of them researched the S&P 1500 CEOs, all of the CEOs in the S&P 1500 over a period of a decade, and asked the question, does physical fitness impact the bottom line of a business? And so they used marathon running as the benchmark. If your CEO can run a marathon, does your company tends to outperform the average in the S&P 1500? And the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes. So statistically speaking, companies that are in the S&P 1500 during that decade of research would have made a tremendous amount more money if they were led by a CEO who's capable of running a marathon. In a second follow-up study, there was another group of researchers, totally different group of researchers, but also used the S&P 1500 and their CEOs to determine whether or not playing golf had an impact on the bottom line, because it's a popular sport among executives, right? And absolutely, yes, playing golf impacts the bottom line negatively. Yes. CEOs who played the most golf led companies that performed on worse than the average on net profit and return on assets. And it was the same basic indicators used in both studies, the same group of people used in both studies, and the same companies used in both studies. So it's easy to put them back both together, and you can say, yeah, actually, not only does it matter if a CEO is physically fit, but it matters a tremendous amount, and it matters what kind of physical fitness. So if you take a 4-hour activity, like either a marathon or a round of golf, both of them take 4 hours, right?
Yes.
So it's not a matter of time allocation. They're both allocating time. It's the kind of activity, it's the intensity of it, and the mental demand of it. So the researchers on the golf study, they suggested that maybe CEOs who play a lot of golf have a tendency toward leisure, and that tendency toward, or that preference for leisure, leads them to be mentally lazy. And that might carry over into other areas of their work. They don't read the detailed reports. They don't last very long in negotiations. They give in their positions too soon. And they would contrast that with the marathon study, where they would say, look, you know what, the mental agility and the mental discipline it takes to run a marathon, if you bring that into the boardroom, you can handle anything. You can sit there for 4 hours and listen to a presentation. You can sit there for 4 hours and negotiate without saying anything. You can outlast your opponents. You can read through the bottom lines. You can read the fine prints, because you can focus on something that's tremendously difficult for a period of at least 4 hours. So they're saying that the impact of a certain kind of physical fitness changes the way that your mental fitness is, and that has a major impact on the bottom line in terms of organizational fitness.
Amazing.
So to give you like I go through in my course on Udemy in the Pillar 1 Fitness, I teach through one case study where I take a hypothetical organization that's worth $1 billion. Okay, we'll just say the market value is $1 billion. The asset value of that company is $1 billion in 2007. And then in that year, with that company of that asset value of $1 billion, if that company had been led by a golfing CEO, it would be worth $1.53 billion in the market. But if that company was run by a CEO that had run a marathon, it would be worth $2.5 billion in the market. So the actual monetary difference between a company that's run by a CEO who golfs and a company that's run by a CEO who runs marathons in 2007 at a $1 billion asset value is actually $800 million in shares. So that's a fairly big impact. So I would say
impact, yes. I'm speechless. That's why I didn't say anything when you stopped.
So so for me, that's one of the big highlights is I think physical fitness. It just shows that CEOs, executives, or senior managers who take their entire lives seriously and who have a holistic view of fitness, not just mental fitness, but physical fitness and organizational fitness at the same time. Those are incredibly big determinants of whether or not a senior manager is effective.
You've just answered one of my very big queries. Like before we started, we were talking about how I can solve some of the things, and I got the answer just now.
Oh yeah, what's that?
I need to change the way I live. I need to be a marathon runner.
Yeah. Well, I don't run marathons. I run Spartan races.
Okay.
I run obstacle course races, and I train CrossFit. So even now during COVID-19, I have a terrace in my apartment, and so I'm on my terrace every day lifting kettlebells and doing box jumps and trying to keep my physical fitness in order, because you get a whole bunch of mental benefits too from
Yeah.
becoming physically fit, right?
We think
It's
differently.
what happens up
Right.
here.
Yeah.
Absolutely you do. You get a huge hit of dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins when you do physical fitness, and those neurochemical they're pleasure chemicals, right? You feel happier. Plus, then your body starts to change. Your heart rate goes up. Your cardiovascular system gets stronger,
Exactly.
and then blood and oxygen move into your brain better, and that improves your ability to think.
Certainly, it does. Yes, for sure. So, Dr. Corrie, you've been a consultant for CEOs since decades, right?
For 20 years I've been a
20 years.
strategist.
Yeah, that's why I
Yeah,
said decades.
so a little bit of my background for your audience that doesn't know me. I spent 8 years in Dubai, 5 years in Yemen before this, 8 years in Estonia before that. I've started 7 companies of my own. I have 2 master's degrees, 2 doctorate degrees. I'm a professor of strategic management at Monarch School of Business in Switzerland. And now I've kind of earned the right to do what I want. So I provide consulting, strategy consulting, and executive coaching mostly.
Mostly to the CEOs.
Yeah.
So, what has been your most interesting experience? Something that you could relate to, talk about, even when you're lecturing?
My most interesting experience in general? I think probably.
No, while you were consulting.
Oh, while I was consulting. Oh my goodness. I have a great story. Okay, you're not going to believe this. But this was last year. This is 2019. Okay. I was in the boardroom of a major government organization, billions of dirhams at stake. Okay. And I had all of these directors around, and the general director was there. And they had asked me to do a very short introduction to artificial intelligence. So that's one of my 2 big loves, by the way. We can come back to that later, but artificial intelligence and employee engagement. Let's come back to those. But anyway, I was in front of this board, the general director, and all of these directors of the organization. And I was talking about artificial intelligence, and about 20 minutes into my presentation, the head of engineering for this massive government organization puts up his hand and he says, "Dr. Corrie, I have a question." And I said, "Sure, go ahead." He said, "I thought artificial intelligence was robots coming to take over our jobs." And in my head, I was kind of going a little crazy. I was like, do I laugh? Do I cry? Like, what's the right response here? What do you do when the head of engineering with billions of dollars at stake honestly thinks like the Terminator is his view of artificial intelligence? And I was like, oh my goodness, that's so I looked around the room quickly to gauge other people's responses so that I could understand what the culture in the room was. And a few people were looking puzzled, like, why would you ask that? That's silly. And a few people were like, I don't understand the question. Exactly. And then there was other people that were like nodding their heads, like, yeah, you know what? That's a real concern. Robots are coming to take over our jobs. That's why we don't need artificial intelligence. And I was like, in my head, I was thinking, oh my goodness, there's actually a bunch of people here that understand this point of view. And he's not speaking on his own. He's speaking for a group of people on this board of directors that think that artificial intelligence is a threat. And I was a little stunned by that. But of course, all of this is happening in my head in a very short period of time.
Yes.
And I responded, I said, that's a real concern, but it's not a necessary concern. Robots are not coming to take over our jobs. In fact, what they're doing is they're augmenting our jobs and making us better. They're making us faster. They're improving the quality of our decision making. Yes. Yeah, we're talking not about, I think maybe the term artificial intelligence throws people off because it sounds like you're replacing one kind of intelligence with the other.
Actually, the bottom line is that there have been too many debates about this, especially related to HR and AI.
Yes.
Yeah. And so many newspapers have been debating on it in a way that gives people the impression that robots are going to take over everything. And then there have been
Yeah.
movies with the same theme,
That's
showing
right.
actually the robots taking over and people
Yeah,
are
that's
suffering.
true. Yeah,
So
that's true.
this is what and everybody watches movies, right? We learn more from
Yeah.
watching movies than from reading.
Yes.
Because this is the shortcut for all of us to
Yeah,
get
yeah, of course.
some quick kicks of
Yeah.
information. So this is the reason they were under the impression that this is so. How did you handle that in the room? Like
Well, I said, look,
you had
I
a
said
limited
maybe,
time. Yeah, you had a
yes, of
limited
course.
time to educate them. So how
Yeah,
did
yeah,
you
of
do?
course. So I said, look, maybe the term artificial is not correct, or it's
Mm.
not helpful in this circumstance. I said, let's not think about it as artificial intelligence. Let's think about it as augmented intelligence. Because what we're actually doing is we're using computers and sometimes robots to make you smarter, faster, and more efficient. We're not replacing humans. We're just
Yeah.
making humans better. But it's still going to be you making the decisions at the end of the day. So think about it as an augmented intelligence. And they said, well, what about, computers replacing our jobs and things like that? And I said, what would you say if I said that you could come to work, get paid the same amount as you're getting paid now, but only work 10 hours a week and do a better job?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, that's possible? I said, of course it's possible. Why would, if the company is making enough money and you're doing a great job, but 75% of your work is replaced by a computer that can work in the background and when you're sleeping, and it provides you with a higher quality of information so that you can make and execute a higher quality of decision, and you only need 10 hours a week to do that, why would we require you to come in more? You can get paid the same amount of money and then spend the other 30 hours a week with your kids. Go home, read a book, enjoy your life.
A more enriching
That's
life.
Yes, that's right. Now, of course, it's still to be seen whether or not we as humans move in that direction. I think we should move in that direction of actually working, working less using augmented intelligence rather than replacing humans and then getting humans out of the workforce. I don't think that's going to be helpful in the long term because we still have to feed and clothe people. So I think just making us more efficient is going to be a better outcome than replacing us entirely. But yeah, they had never thought about that possibility.
Yeah, I personally believe that we, all of us, have to change people's perception of the way we think about technology, the
Yeah.
way we think about reality, the way we think
Yeah.
about business operations. Because
Yes.
until and unless we're not ready to accept the fact that we need to be more efficient, we need to make our operations more time efficient, more
Yeah.
effective, we are not
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to move towards a more progressive mindset. Because what
Yeah.
happened
That's
in
right.
that room was uh, they were not aptly informed about the benefits, so they were
Yes, that's
assuming
right.
something that wasn't there.
That's correct. Well, it's a really good way to highlight. I think one of the, like I said, I think the two big things that companies need to take into consideration over the next 10 years in order to survive is employee engagement and artificial intelligence. Those two things are actually changing the game, with or without COVID-19. These two things are changing everything. Employee engagement, let's take that. We've already talked a little bit about artificial intelligence. That's changing everything, right? Digitally
Yes.
speaking. Let's think about employee engagement. Those companies that have already engaged their employees and their employees feel intrinsically motivated and intrinsically loyal to the organization, those companies don't have to worry about remote work because their people
Yes,
are working. You don't have to
exactly.
babysit people that are passionate. You don't. So if the people are aligned to the vision and the values of the organization, and they're happy with their jobs, they have a clear set of expectations, they know what to do, and they have access to the resources with which to do it, then they're already engaged. That means that when they're at home, you don't have to babysit them. They're fine. They're just going to get on with it because they like
Yeah.
what they do. They
Yes.
understand that this half of their life that they're spending at work is a good half. They enjoy it,
Mhm.
right? But those employees that are disengaged, so for those companies that have not invested in employee engagement and they have either passively or actively disengaged employees, you better believe they're just checking their Facebook and brushing up their CV. They're not working.
Yes,
They
it's
will,
true. And they're even confused about what's expected of them.
yeah, yeah. So if the employer is a jerk, keep in mind, like all of this again, I'm a student. I'm academic. So if you look at the Gallup research on employee engagement from 2019, they took 20 years of data from more than 300,000 business units. And they found that companies that have higher levels of employee engagement enjoy 21% increases in profitability, for example, 17% increases in performance, also, for example. So companies that invest in engaging their employees, they profit more, they make more money. Companies that don't, they make less money. But 70% of the variance of whether or not an employee is engaged or disengaged, 70% of that variance comes down to a single relationship in the organization. And that is the relationship between the employee and their direct supervisor or their direct manager. If the manager is a jerk, 70% of that variance on employee engagement will come down to the nature of that relationship. If the manager is a jerk, the employee will be either passively or actively disengaged most of the time. That means that when nobody's watching them, which is almost all of the time anyway, they're not working, or they're doing the bare minimum. They're doing the least amount of work possible in order to just get the paycheck and get through the day. But if their relationship with their manager is strong, if they believe that they're in a place where they're supported, they're defended, they have the ability to make a mistake and not get reprimanded for it, if they believe that the environment that they're in is safe, then those companies will make more money. And 70% of the variance is just one single relationship. So for business owners like yourself, if you have managers in your organization that have a difficult time with the interpersonal relationships between themselves and their employees, guaranteed those managers' teams will not be performing during this time.
Right. One quick question.
Yeah.
Some of the companies must have hired new people.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And then COVID-19 happened all of a sudden,
Yes.
and we got to know on March 8th that things are going to be different.
Yeah.
And I believe that people who were hired, let's say, a couple of months back might not be as connected as the employees who were there for a long time. And then there were some people who were not trained sufficiently. So what tips you can give to both employees and the managers? How can they make things happen? How can they still go on, build relationship that will help them perform optimally?
Yeah. So first thing is to recognize that we are humans, not resources. Okay? That's the first thing. Step out of HR and step back into the reason why all humans get into any kind of organization ever. So we used to, if we go back 100,000 years in human development, what we used to do is we used to band together to compete for resources on the planet by building families into tribes, tribes into nations, and nations eventually became into empires. Empires then competed for resources on the planet by using military means. We used to throw spears at each other. We used to kill each other to compete for resources on the planet. But we don't do that anymore. Alhamdulillah, we've changed our ways. Yeah, 300 years ago or so, we saw a dramatic shift toward using economics to compete rather than using military might. So rather than using violence now, which is an uncivilized game, we have an economic game, which is a more civilized game. So instead of killing somebody to take their resources or to dominate resources on the planet, instead of that, we hire a third-party arbiter called the market, or a customer or a client. And that customer or client or market decides in which direction the resources of the planet should go, toward this organization, toward that organization. But the organizations that are competing for resources are still manufactured of humans. They're made up of humans. And humans have always had the same kind of intrinsic motivations for belonging in a tribe, family, nation, empire, or business. They need to contribute to a community that contributes back to them, so that we can all provide for our and protect our families all at the same time. We can educate our kids, we can feed our families, we can put roofs over our heads, we can have medical insurance, we can have transportation, we can take care of our parents in their old age. We're still humans being human, we just do it in a more elegant way now. So the first thing that managers need to recognize is humans have 300,000 years of evolutionary momentum in the direction of building relationships so that they know to which communities they should be providing in order for those communities to provide back for them. That's number one. And all humans build relationship in basically the same way. It's a combination of serotonin and oxytocin. All humans we produce those chemicals here when we see somebody that we trust and we connect with them. So my advice on a practical level is connect with your employees. Become curious about what they're doing in their personal lives. How are they handling this? Where do they find joy in their life? What are the pain points that they're feeling? Remember that they're humans, and humans are not machine parts. We are not robots. We are messy and emotional and wonderful and creative, and we have this need to connect. And if you connect, you'll be more profitable. And if you do not connect, you'll be less profitable. And that's what the research is basically backing up the last 300,000 years of evolutionary psychology, which is those companies that have managers that are able to connect every single day with every single one of their direct reports, and then get those direct reports to connect every single day with every one of their direct reports. Those companies will do better.
I agree with that. During COVID-19, how are you coping? I know it's a very blunt question. Yes, for you.
Well, today, as it is, Nousheen, today is day 29. I have not left my apartment in 29 days today. No, it's nice. I'm blessed with a beautiful apartment. I have a big terrace. I have the roof of our building. So I have an outdoor space, which I think is helping a lot. But honestly, I'm doing great. My wife is here with me, and she's at work full time every day. So we get up in the morning, we have breakfast together. She goes to her office. I go to my office. We work, we meet for lunch. And then we go back to work in the afternoons. Then we exercise together on the roof, and then we come downstairs and cook dinner together. So it's because we're building a great routine. And I think that's probably what the best advice is, to build and stick to a routine, right?
Yes, because that saves us.
Yeah, of course. If you have a strong routine, then you know what's coming next. Then you know that sitting on the couch for 5 hours binge watching Tiger King isn't going to be productive for you, and it's just a trap that you're going to fall into. Now, don't get me wrong, we do watch a bit of TV, but we save that for like later in the evening, or on the weekends, And I do recommend this, please. Take your weekends. If you get Fridays and Saturdays off, take them off, right?
It should
watch TV, sit outside. We've been playing a lot of board games like Monopoly and Jenga and all these board games that we have that haven't come out for a long time. We're bringing them out, and it's hilarious.
Yes, it's good. We've been going for the groceries, but the kids are always at home. They cannot go anywhere at all. So sometimes the board games are a savior for them.
Yes, that's true.
Mine, he loves it.
Yeah. No, we haven't left even for groceries. We've been doing all of our grocery shopping online.
Okay.
So all of our fresh produce comes every week. All of our meats, everything we need, we get it all online now. So we've learned to live honestly without opening the door. And it's been really great. I have chronic bronchitis. So I have one of the underlying conditions that makes COVID-19 especially deadly for people like me. Otherwise I'm in really great health, but my lungs are weak and my bronchial system.
You need to take care.
So I have to be isolated. Yeah, but actually doing really well. So far, so good.
Yes, and then we can make calls all the time. I recently attended your webinars. They were amazing. I learned so much through the interaction. And definitely it is. And I'm going to keep track for the one which is coming in May and join you there. So
please.
Back to the wonderful things we were talking about. My first introduction to Dr. Corrie was through his podcast, Business is Personal.
Yes.
And trust me, all episodes were equally amazing. I learned a lot from that. Yes. And I realized that, yes, business it certainly is personal. So what was your inspiration towards launching this, and how did you pick and choose all your guests who were coming to talk?
Sure. I think for me, one of the big things that's behind Business is Personal is just that recognition that there's no such thing as a company doing business with another company. There's no company out there. It's a community an economic community of people, humans, who've all banded their lives together on an economic project, dealing with another band or community of humans that have all banded their families together on an economic project. So there's no companies doing business with companies ever. No company has ever made a deal with another company ever. It's never happened. It's always a representative of a human community, an economic community, and another representative of a human economic community doing business with each other on behalf of those communities. That's how business happens. And so in that sense, it's always human, it's always individual, it's always interpersonal, and then it's always personal. Also, there's no such thing as a business transaction that doesn't have a human impact. All business is personal. Because, okay, so we're not shooting each other like we used to do to compete for resources on the planet. Now we have economic games that we play, and we play to win those games. And the companies or the communities that win the games better, they get more resources. And the companies that don't win the games, they get fewer resources. And all of those families in those economic communities either win together well or lose together poorly. And so all business, all transactions have a human impact. And so I just wanted to get away from this phrase. It's just business, nothing personal. And
Yes, this was very
I have,
common before. Very,
yeah,
very common.
I used to hear that a lot, you know, as a consultant, I'm constantly putting myself in the market. I'm available for consultation, and you know, sometimes I win and sometimes I don't win. But when I don't win and they say, hey, you know what, it's not personal, it's just business, I say, actually, that's not true. My ability to care for my family, my ability to raise my quality of life has been impacted by this decision. It's a fair decision. You can decide to do whatever you want with your resources, but let's not pretend that it doesn't impact me. The decision impacts me. In the same way, whatever I do in terms of provision for my clients, if I do a poor job or if I do a half-assed job, that's going to impact their ability to provide for their community. Also, if I do an amazing job, that's going to positively impact their ability to provide for their community. And that is also personal. Now, I know that as a consultant, working inside a company for a short period of time, 6 months, 9 months, which is my usual engagement, I can impact the lives of all of those employees all at the same time. I can do it in a short period of time, and usually by just either cutting costs or opening up new revenue streams or streamlining the corporate architecture of the organization. But what it does is it provides more resources internally in the organization for providing for and protecting those people in the same way that we've been doing for 100,000 years. But yes, business is always personal. All business is always personal.
Even when the companies are providing services, they're providing services to another company, but they are tailoring those services according to the needs of all those people who are working in those companies. So that makes it personal.
Of course. Yes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So coming to the second question, how did you pick and choose your guests for the podcast?
Actually, my guests were chosen for me. My podcasts were produced by Briar Prestige in the UAE, and she chose my guests for me. So we discussed topics and what we would talk about on the podcast, and then she would shortlist some people. And I also, with my list of contacts and previous clients, also submitted some names, and we found them just by partnering up that way. But yeah, it was my producer, Briar, who built the lists of people that would come.
Okay, great. So she's been assisting me a little with that.
Yeah, she's done amazing. I don't know how to produce a podcast. I guess I could probably fumble through it, but honestly, I was just saved by her. She was absolutely incredible. Yeah, she did a great job.
So this is a lesson for other CEOs that if you're looking forward to do some great content and share insights, you need to have someone to help you. And there you go.
Yeah, listen, I have a strong personal brand, but I haven't been on my own this whole time. Like I said, I've worked with Briar and I've worked with others in social media to produce great content. And I think that's just normal. You need to recognize what you can and can't do. And if you can't do it, whether or not you're willing or unwilling to learn it. And if you're unwilling to learn it,
delegating makes us grow. It's
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I'm still working with designers for doing things that I can't do. Like my book design, obviously my book cover has to be designed by somebody, and I can't do that. I don't have the skills. I don't have the time to learn the skills necessary to design a book cover. So I need to employ someone to do it.
When are we expecting the book to be here with us?
Oh goodness, I was just looking at cover designs this morning, and we're getting close. So I'm hoping I will have the the final draft should be in this week of the text, and then the final book cover should be done by the end of the month. So I'm expecting it to be listed on Amazon and Barnes and Noble by mid-May.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That would be great. I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. It's been a long time. It's been a year and a half of just writing.
Lots of effort goes into it, definitely.
Yes, of course.
Dr. Corrie is also launching a series of courses on Udemy that we can benefit from as CEOs, and I want him to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so it's based on the book, Spartan CEO, but it goes into much more depth, and it's me actually going through with you the materials that I would go through with you if I was your executive coach. It's just that we'd have to interact online instead of face to face. But what it does is it takes all of that research and all of that knowledge and all of that experience and all of those stories and makes it accessible to you from me directly in a way that you can use that to impact your career trajectory and your performance as a person holistically, as a high-performing senior manager or executive. So if you're in a management position, this is going to be informative for you.
So we are going to apply all those tricks and tactics that you are talking about in the book practically through the courses.
That's correct.
Okay,
yeah, so you'll learn all of those things. I know. I'm really excited about it too. I've been a professor of strategic management for a few years. Before that, I was a postgraduate professor of applied anthropology in Texas. And so I've taught online materials before. I've taught online, but it usually costs about $2,000 to $2,500 to take one of my courses because it has to go through a university. This is the first time that I've taken strong research-based material and produced it for the general public to give you something that you have access to. And it's cheap to get this. But I'm hoping that it'll benefit a lot more people and that you'll become a lot more higher performing in your own life. And we were discussing before, I think one of the biggest things, there's 6 pillars, right? There's fitness, confidence, discipline, connecting, rest, and competition. And so, yeah, it's going to be 6 separate courses because there's a lot of information. And the first course is done. It's not quite published yet. It should be published just within the next few days on Udemy. It's Pillar 1, fitness. And in that, I discuss what does physical, mental, and organizational fitness look like? What are the interactions between physical, mental, and organizational fitness? And how do we define it? What does mental laziness look like? How to recognize mental laziness or mental fat in your own life? How to recognize the masks that leaders wear in order to hide their mental fat? Because we do, right? Leaders who are mentally fat, mentally unfit, they use masks as old as human evolution to hide the fact that they're actually not competent and they don't want to be seen for being incompetent. So they use fight and flight responses. And so I teach you how to recognize those things so that your colleagues, your boss, your employees, whatever it is, when you look at them, now you'll start to see, okay, he's hiding an insecurity because probably there's a bit of mental fat in that area of his life or her life, and she just doesn't want to be known for who she really is in that area, and she's not able or not willing to cure herself of that problem. So there's mental fitness. Obviously, the impact of physical fitness on the bottom line is a big question. Did we talk about golf and running?
We did.
We did. Okay, good.
We did in the beginning, yes.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So that connects back. Yes.
Yeah. So it matters not just that you're physically fit, but what kind of physically fit you are. The intensity of what you do matters, and its impact on your neurochemistry matters. And then for organizational fitness too, just recognizing that there's a difference between weight loss and fitness, right? Physically speaking. If you go to a doctor and say, hey, I want to lose weight, there's a lot of options for you, right? You can diet and exercise. You can do liposuction, right? You can amputate your leg. because you'll lose weight. If you're just looking at a single goal, which is weight loss, you can lose weight by amputating a leg, but that's not going to be healthy for you. It's not a great decision.
Yeah.
And in the same way, organizations, they look usually at, when they're looking at restructuring or they're looking at their net profit, oftentimes they fall into the trap of just a one KPI metric for success on a reorganization plan, and that is net profit. How do we improve our net profit at the end of the year? And that's a bit like walking into your doctor saying, hey, I have a weight loss goal. If the doctor is good, maybe they'll prescribe something good, but if the doctor's not good, maybe they'll prescribe something bad. And if you tell your doctor, look, I'll pay you for every kilogram I lose, well, then there's a lot of options, right? We can perform liposuction. We can remove your large intestine, half of your small intestine. We can remove half of your stomach. We can remove your appendix, your gallbladder. We can remove one of your kidneys. Actually, we can remove both of your kidneys and outsource that to dialysis. You don't need that. We can remove one of your legs because you're not an athlete. You don't need both of your legs. You can use crutches. Just think of all the weight you'll lose, right? And so that's silly. But if you're paying a surgeon based on how much weight you'll lose, yeah, of course, the surgeon's going to cut off as much of you as they can without killing you. That's what happens in consulting. When companies go to consulting organizations, they say, hey, listen, how do we increase our net profit? If you're only looking at net profit, that's like a weight loss goal. That is not a fitness goal. And that surgeon, that consultant, is going to come in and say, cut off your leg, take out your kidney, take out your appendix, take out your gallbladder, do it all at the same time as fast as possible, and then pay me based on how much weight you lose. That's bad consulting, but that's the way the industry runs. So if you're only looking at net profit and only looking at this year's returns, yeah, you're going to do a tremendous amount of damage to that organization. And that's what happened, I think, during the 70s and 80s, is when, for the first time, consultants started to turn organizations toward net profit returns as the key metric. And that's not the key metric. That's not going to show you your future performance. What shows you future performance is your investment in learning and development, process improvement, your investment in customer satisfaction and market research and response. Those are the things that will indicate your future performance, not weight loss. Weight loss is a poor metric because there's a lot of ways to get to weight loss, but there's only a few ways to get to fitness.
Thank you so much. It's great advice, for all of us who are listening. When your books and the courses will come out, they will be advertised on the website. So
yes, absolutely, yes.
So the website is
www.drcorrieblock. That's DrCorrieblock.com.
Great. We will be showing this in the comments, and also done. You can see it now in the messages. And you can also reach out to Dr. Corrie through social media. He's on LinkedIn. He's also on Instagram. Yes,
that's right. At Dr._Corrie_block. At Dr._Corrie_block. Yeah.
Yes, you can see this in the comments right now, and you can follow Dr. Corrie from here and get more advice.
It's my pleasure. If I can do anything to improve the quality of your life, I will try.
Thank you so much for being with us today. It's amazing to get to learn from you so much.
Thank you, Nousheen. I really appreciate it.
We will do one more on AI very soon.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Happy to do it.
All right. Have a good day. Take care.
Take care. You too.